Okay, I saw this sweet little film last night and I just cannot get
Oh.
over it. Helps that it stars two of my favorite people. One is the excellent Vinay Pathak and the even more excellent Shiny Gupta. And I'm meeting for the first time Nicholas Kharkongor. Have I got your pronunciation right? Hello, people. How-
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Hrishi.
I no, you haven't, but we don't have all the time in the day.
Ooh, smooth.
Nice, touche.
Well,
For the
to
for
be
the
to be fair, even Nicholas struggles to pronounce his name.
Yeah,
One.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
I
Nicholas,
don't even attempt.
Nicholas, for the benefit of poor Shakaharis who can never even, if they try, attempt to know the delights of Akhuni, namely Vinay Pathak ji, please describe to us what really is Akhuni.
So Akhuni actually is very shakahari.
It is.
It's
Yeah.
fermented beans.
Okay.
So
Thank you very
When
much.
it's added to pork, when it's added to pork is when the non-veg business happens.
yeah, that's when it gets divine. But anything added to pork, you know,
Divide.
take on a whole new level. But
I can't believe
but akhuni is like miso soup is basically fermented beans. That's
it.
akhuni. Although the Japanese also have something called natto, which is close to our akhuni.
Okay.
Doesn't taste anything like our akhuni, let me say.
Mm.
So um, and then of course various across Southeast Asia, China, you have the black bean sauce, which is again like slightly, even your soya sauce is actually out of soya beans, but it's not really fermented in that sense. So it's very popular across Southeast Asia, Nepal, a bunch of these countries, that entire stretch.
And is it really spelled Axone? Is that the way you spell
So
it?
this is how we spell it back home. The funny thing is actually there are many languages in the Northeast now. So without getting into it, it's crazy, right? I mean, by
I
varying
feel for you.
accounts.
I feel for you because when they say South Indian, they say Madrasi. You understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
People north of the
We don't
Vindhyas,
want to get into it.
they don't
Yeah,
understand that there is, a Malayali and a Tamilian and
yeah,
a Golti, a Teluguite or a Kannadiga.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So there are all these different languages, and Akhuni actually comes from one of the languages in Nagaland, what is called the Sumi or the Sema language. However, they don't have a script. So it's written, well, in the Roman script, but then they've picked up what is the Assamese way of writing things. And the X,
Mm.
AXONE is actually Assamese in the way that they say Ohomia. You know, the
Yeah.
it's
Ah.
Huh.
AxomiyA, and
Huh.
it's pronounced as Ohomia. So the
Yeah.
Akhoni has come from there in the actual writing of it. So otherwise it's Akhuni, which is in Nagaland, something else. But I'm saying because it's borrowed from Assamese, the term itself, it's become AXONE. That's how it's become popular now. So that's how we write it.
So did you get this
Awesome.
tutorial, Shiny, Vinay? Considering that, there is a point that, where the smoked pork is lying there and then you say, now for the akhuni. Now, it makes sense to me because, she takes it out of the patta and she puts it in and things like that. So did you
Okay.
get the tutorial?
So
I mean,
all I got from my dear friend Nicholas here is a phone call. That's all I got. And he called and said, I have a stereotypical North Indian Khadoos character, which is not a big role, but you have to do it. And I said, well, you're not even asking me, you're telling me, so I guess I will. So that's how it happened. Afterwards, of course, he was kind enough to send me the script, and I read the script, and it completely, blew me over. It was a fantastic film, even on paper.
so did your tutorial happen at all? Shiny.
Uh, Not about this especially. I mean, it's so fascinating to listen to, what
Yeah.
Nick is saying. And there is really so much to know and learn. And, through the process of filmmaking, although we think, we are pretty evolved and we try to be aware and things like that. And, and of course, I've had friends and very, very close friends who are from different states in the Northeast. But having said that, there is so much that one learned during the process of making the film, of course about food, but as Nick was saying, the languages, I mean, the Babel scene that gives you a little bit of a glimpse into that. There are so many languages and so many dialects within those languages, from one tribe to the other. And really, what we think of Northeast is not really one homogeneous entity, right? It's extremely diverse in terms of everything, culturally, food, of course, features, temperament, how people are, all of that. So it's really been an extremely eye-opening sort of experience, but also super exciting because the food we ate while shooting was stunning. I discovered Naga food for the first time, and there was a place called Heritage where we were shooting in Humayunpur in Delhi, and we would eat there morning, evening, afternoon, dinner. We would just, and some days Nick would not go with us, and Nick would just vanish after shoot. Okay, we go to Heritage, he's sitting there alone and eating
And I'm like,
pork,
oh
Axone
no,
pork.
these people are here again.
So yeah, we would eat that food every day, yeah, and a lot of Axone we ate.
What I also love is, with all the fun and everything that this beautiful film has, is the underlying theme of racism at every level. And these are very telling times we live in, because if you look at what's happening in the West with George Floyd, if you look at what's happening here with migrant workers, it's a very important film. And it's not just racism towards the Northeast, which I'm so glad that you made it so democratic, Nicholas. It's also racism within the Northeast. I'm not going to reveal spoilers, but the fact that even people in the Northeast, look at certain communities as being alien. I thought that was really beautiful. So, you conceived of it, so you would have enough to say of it. But I want to know Vinay's point of view. As a global citizen who's lived so many places across this country and this city, you've seen that firsthand, haven't you, Vinay? Them being called chinky in Delhi University, Chinese or whatever it is, and all those facets. Let's talk about that.
Yes, see, discrimination is not something new, yeah, in my opinion. It's been always there. And now, thanks to social media, thanks to so many different platforms, we almost feel like it's in our face, which is our understanding. That's how we're looking at things. But 40 years ago, it was right there, and unfortunately, it was okay 40 years ago. What's great about right now is that we are calling it out, uh, and that's great. That awareness that this is wrong. It's not that it's not happening or it hadn't happened or it's not going to happen again. Of course, it will. It's going to take time. But I think from 40 years till now, uh, at least we are calling it out. We're saying, hey, look. The way you said, in lots of times people who discriminate don't even know that they're discriminating,
Yeah.
because that's how they have lived all their lives. It's been conditioned in the culture they have grown in. I mean, this film is about these people in Delhi, and if you actually do a Vox Pop survey, you'd realize that many of the youngsters or many people, they don't think that there's anything wrong in it, because
Mm.
that's how they understand diversity. That's how they understand something that is not in their realm of comfort, and hence. So I think a film like Akuni is so important, and it's one film that has come out in so many years. I think not necessarily exactly this film, but films like these need to be made. Stories like these need to be told, and cinema, web, uh, podcast. Why not? Let's make this viral, because 3 generations from now might have an impact if we start to discuss, debate now. Is how I look at it.
Very well said. Shani, anybody who's lived in Kolkata, then Calcutta, would understand Upasana Rai and the way she speaks. But not everybody. I'll tell you this, the wife is watching this with me and she goes, and she knows Shani Gupta from Former Shots Please and Jolly LB, and she goes, but why is she talking like this? And because I've pretty much grown up there, I knew, because you're exposed to people coming in from Kalimpong and Gangtok and Siliguri, so Upasana Rai was just there. And that Nepali accent is not very well known in India. I mean, thanks to retro cinema, You know, just like we South Indians were typecast as Kyaji, Aji, like Mahmood Saab did.
Yeah.
The Nepalis were always Shaibji, Shaibji. So big ups to you in terms of getting that right. Um, have you, obviously you must have been exposed to the same, lots of people from Nepal. So your influences in building Upasana, the character.
Wow, I'm actually relieved a little bit because Nick knows how nervous I am about this exact same thing. Because I have been very, very nervous to just get that authentically right. And as you said, I've obviously been exposed to a lot of people growing up in Calcutta, was also in Delhi. But I have to tell you, Rishi, that no two people have the same accent. I have met and come across and spent time with so many people, uh, Nepalis or not Nepalis, in Nepalis, there are Nepalis in Sikkim, there's Nepalis in Manipur, so even different parts, from different regions, right? Still, no two people have the same sort of accent. So we had to come at something that works. But I'll have to tell you that the way Nick wrote the lines had a tempo and a pace and a rhythm to it. The lines had an inherent sense of uh, this musicality to it, which I sort of got from the text. And that's amazing about any good text, right? When you get a good script, it sort of tells you everything you need to know and how she is. So I just felt like how Upasana talks is not really normal. She's one very hyper, and she has a little bit of that going on. So her tempo has to be with going with her body language. And of course, I worked with a few people to get the dialect right and to get a lot of slangs. I was really having fun with the slangs, and Nick was like, listen, calm down, just calm down. So and Nick of course allowed me to take my hairstylist, who is Nepali, so she was of tremendous help. Maria, she was there as my dialect coach throughout. And after every shot, before looking at Nick, I would look at Maria saying "Theek tha na?" And I actually dragged Maria to our dubbing, sitting next to Nick and being like, "What is wrong with this girl?" I had another friend Kefa Subba, who's my junior from FTIM. He's Nepali, so I rehearsed every scene, every line multiple times on voicemail with him while I was shooting for it. Every day I would go back to my room and make Maria sit with me for 2 hours at least, and because I was very nervous, I didn't want people to have that kind of reaction that your wife had, like, what is she doing, kind of thing. So that was quite yeah, it was challenging, but it was also like the most fun part, I feel.
Big ups to you, Nicholas, because how can I put it any other way? You walk into Pahalganj in Delhi, for example, and all of a sudden you feel you're in an Anurag Kashyap film. To me, the world of Humayunpur, which I don't know in the sense, Delhi to me has been Delhi University, North Campus, the Vijayanagar and the Mall Road, and those areas, and that people in the Northeast, are clannish just like all communities are. But I believe you lived in Humayunpur for a decade.
Yeah. So I'm saying for a long time, the Northeasterners that would actually move out of the Northeast, that would happen mostly to study, especially in Delhi. It would be in Delhi University. And then what happened in the mid 90s, because of the opening up of the economy, suddenly there was retail, all these shops that opened up, and a lot of Northeastern salespeople, etc. Restaurants came up in a big way. Again, they used a lot of Northeasterners. The BPO, the whole call center business, that again, a lot of Northeasterners. So there was a huge influx of Northeasterners. So after Christopher Columbus had plunked himself there, suddenly you had a horde of these people that came, and then before you know it, Humayunpur changed before my very eyes. So from the mid 90s, when there were just a few of us, to the late 2000s, when it was a bustling, and that's why I really wanted to shoot the entire, I never wanted to step out of it. I said, this is one Delhi film where we don't want to see flyovers and metro and Yewo and all of that, because we've seen all of that. We just want to situate ourselves in Humayunpur. And it's a bit like one of those Vogue shoots, which is all, of course, stylized, but you see all these models, with their fancy clothes, set against a backdrop of, a lane and so on and so forth. And obviously that's all very set up. But in this case, you walk into Humayunpur, there will be the Bhajiwala, and then there'll be that dirty lane, and Cheek by Jowl is this northeasterner in his fancy like red, shirt and Bermudas and whatever. So it's quite a sight, and that's why, I was very keen that we shoot the whole damn thing there. That's Humayunpur. So it's changed a lot. And of course, also just to add that in the beginning, because there were just a few of us, we were more a novelty, and I remember I would run a lot in that, there's a park there called Deer Park, and they'd call me Jackie Chan, Dalai Lama. I couldn't for the life of me figure out why Dalai Lama would be running, a marathon. But that would happen on a day-to-day basis. But from that point, when, in the 90s, when it was just, we were more an item of curiosity, it became a huge population by the mid-2000s and so on. And that has its own set of problems, and then all that which I talk about. But that's just one side of it. Of course, there's a whole lot of sense of, community and camaraderie as well that exists.
How beautiful are you, Vinay Pathak, as the bum who doesn't do anything? Fantastic. Just the slacker. I mean, this is the kind of role.
According to Nick, he was typecasting.
He said, how do I prepare? I said, don't you worry about it. Just be yourself. Just
be yourself. Pass. That's all you got to do. Just pass. With great timing.
And this thing about a mother-in-law and a son-in-law kind of relationship, or just that unbun, and that equation is just spectacular. I mean, I haven't seen enough of that in Indian cinema. Dolly Ahluwalia and yourself, I want to talk about that. Yeah, I mean, just those lines, that repartee, coming together of two great actors, of course. Vinay, talk me through that.
See, Dolly ji is somebody that I had worked before with, and she also has a theatre background. But initially, when I got to know Dolly ji, she was this great acclaimed costume designer.
Yep.
I met her for the first time in this film called Water, which Deepa Mehta directed. And Dolly ji, was the costume designer. Dolly ji she is the costume designer. And Meera Nair comes, Dolly ji is designing costume. Deepa Mehta, Dolly ji is doing the costume. All big films. Even Aaja Nachle, costume designer was Dolly Ahluwalia. My first interaction with Dolly ji was, oh wow, she's this maverick. And she has a theatre background from NSD and all of that. And then in Water, Deepa made her do one small cameo. And I thought, okay, so the costume designer, she's well respected. And when I saw her act, I'm like, oh my God, she just blew it out of the park. And then just realized she's an actor. And wow, what an actor. And of course, much later, that film came.
Vicky Donor.
Vicky Donor, made her. And Dolly ji comes from Punjab. She lives a little away from Jalandhar. And she's very funny. Her sense of humor is like, very Punjabi. And she's one of those actors who's always ready to play. Always ready to play. It's almost like a child. So if there's a scene happening, there's another film that I'm talking about, and three of us, have a scene, and if Dolly ji is in the frame, you rest assured that she's gonna just play somewhere. You don't know where the ball is going to hit and whom. And that's Dolly ji's energy. So most of the scenes that we had was like this. And she was pulling my leg with tu zyada na kar, abhi tere malish karwani. And she would improvise, and she's so much fun. She's really, I mean, I wish we had just one film with Dolly ji and I playing mother-in-law and son-in-law.
Yeah, you can have a spin-off, Vinay.
Yeah, you can have a spin-off.
Totally have a spin-off.
So
and you never see the wife, huh?
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
wife is
You never
never,
see the
you're right,
wife.
you
I mean,
never
that's
see
the
the
beauty of
wife.
this
It's
whole
just the
thing.
girl that's
She's
here.
just
Yeah.
campe hair wherever she is.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it's obvious she's the one who's wearing the pants in this one. So,
Correct.
Shiny, that's one end of the spectrum. Two actors who work together who kind of know each other's vibe and energy. And here are you working. I mean, you've had your share of that with Four More Shots, for example, where all the girls know each other. Cut to this one, I don't know if you've ever worked with Lin before, with Tenzin before. You're thrown into a bunch of new actors. Then what happens to your process? Do you try and get to know them during workshops? Do you hang with them, or does it not matter as long as you get the character right and whatever?
I mean, it's see, you meet your co-actor and then you take it from there. Sometimes it helps that you know somebody. Sometimes it could also mean that it doesn't help because you might not like that person or like the
Sure.
his or her process or acting. So it could go both ways. Tenzing I knew from before because he was in Marguerite, although we didn't have any scenes together, but he played Kalki's boyfriend in college, in her college. And Lynn, I of course knew off. We have lots of common friends, but this entire bunch, we were really going in and working for the first time. Merinla, who's also in the film, extremely funny. Her also I knew, and I knew about her work. But the beauty of this film is that Nick sort of managed to get such a beautiful ensemble that we literally played off each other, and these are things you can't always plan because Lynn and I again are like, yesterday we realized that actually Sayani is more like Chanbi, the character she plays, and Lynn is more like Upasana, the character I play. And yesterday we discussed as we were doing an interview, and but when we were in it, there was just so much trust and so much comfort, and we really looked out for each other, and shooting in Delhi in July with a low budget is never easy. We all were struggling in our own ways, but I think that really got the team together and the bunch of actors. We were also staying in one apartment, like service apartment, so that really helped. So every day we'd go shoot the whole day, come back and take our showers and just be in one room for the rest of the night almost till somebody was like, we were dropping with sleep, and we would just laugh at our misery and just eat together and make fun of everyone and bully people, in the group, and roast each other and just have a great time. Like Vinay came in for 4 days, I think, and he also saw it. I mean, Vinay is one of my closest friends in life, but it was the first time I sort of was working with him, right? And I just wish we had more scenes together, but it was just such a pleasure, and films like this, and probably that's why we do this, that you have opportunity of really jamming with new people that you meet and experience magic, and you can't plan those things. You just have to go in and just submit and trust each other.
So you said there was great food on the set. Did you manage to eat akhuni finally? Was it ever made, or does it have to be ceremonial?
Yeah, so we of course made. I was in charge of the cooking in the film, right? And I was doing not such a great job at the actual cooking because it looked horrible while I was making it. But I do know the process. Like there's so much like exotic, things that go in which look so beautiful on camera. But yeah, we did taste it later. I told you in Heritage we'd go and eat akhune pork or akhune chicken. Are you frozen again? No, you're not. Oh, thank God.
Must keep moving. I must keep moving for
Yeah, must keep moving.
protect my
I'm so
reputation.
sorry, Rishi. I have to leave in like 3 minutes. I have a webinar to attend.
That's okay. That's okay. So, I'm going to just quickly ask you my last question, and then I will continue with these fine gentlemen. Um, how's the lockdown life treating you? I mean, the last time we spoke, you were doing all these chat sessions with your friends. Have things gotten better where you live? Are you able to just go out and have a coffee sometimes when you go out to get supplies?
Not at all. I do sometimes go out like in once in 3 weeks or something, but I enjoy staying at home and not going out at all. And I'm loving this, honestly. Also feeling extremely grateful because, just when you see so many videos and photos and just realize, there's so many people suffering out there incessantly. And it's not going to be better probably anytime soon. So obviously, so it's been like a mixed bag of emotions, really. Like some days you wake up with a lot of anger, some days you feel helpless, some days there is a new sense of positivity and joy, and you feel lucky to have what you do. And but yeah, so and Some days I feel lucky that videos don't get stuck, and the other days, on the other hand, yeah. So I mean, you feel it's a as I said, it's sometimes overwhelming, sometimes okay. Also, I'm very glad that I've had two releases back to
He's
back.
frozen again.
No,
No, he's not. He's just now he's
that's a prank. That's a
pranking
prank.
us. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Uh, so yeah, I mean, to have FOMO shots release and do really well, and I think some of the reason is the lockdown and the fact that people are consuming so much content right now. And Axone, I think there couldn't be a better time for Axone to come out. We've been waiting for so long, and yeah. So otherwise, I am in no mood to go out and work anytime soon. I'm very happy doing my household chores and cooking for myself and living like this. Um, and I can't bear the thought of putting makeup and doing hair and going into costume ever again. Honestly, I just want to go like this in my own clothes without any hair makeup. I think that's going to be tough again to sit in a chair for makeup hair.
My last question before you go for your webinar is: were you at London or at Mami? And did you
I
get?
didn't actually go to London. I cancelled my flight at the last minute
Mhm.
because I chose to go to Chhattisgarh instead to do a workshop. But I did stay here for Mami, and that's why we were in
Yeah.
fact
So the
talking about it.
reactions at Mami. Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite lovely. There were, standing ovations and stuff, and a lot of people watched it. But also the fact that we could all watch it together, that sense, because unfortunately with the lockdown now, we won't be able to have that experience of having a screening and really celebrating the film together, and seeing what we made. But that happened during Mummy, so totally chuffed about that.
Have a good one. See you.
Thank you so much.
Speak
Thank you.
soon.
Bye, guys. See you
Bye.
soon. Thank you so much. Bye.
Where did you find Nicholas? This guy who plays his son, Vinay Pathak's son. That guy is just fantastic, man.
He's
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
he's quite a natural. He was there in the first film I did as well.
Oh,
So I've
Mantra,
known him
Mantra
for a
that was.
while. Mantra, yeah, yeah. And he had come for an audition then, and he was just fantastic. And he had no background of acting, just one of those naturals. And he was very good, and we used him in Mantra. And then when this film was written, and then we were looking to cast, he was there at the back of my mind always. It, I mean, one still had to sell him because we were looking at a certain number of known faces, etc. But it's always that balance that you have to strike. And he was just so good that I said, we have to let's go with him. And he's just been fantastic in many senses. He almost steals the show.
It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
he does. He does.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Rohan Joshi.
Ron Joshi. Yeah, he's fantastic. So, Vinay, how long have you known Nick? How long have you known Nicholas?
I've known Nicholas for a while, ever since he didn't cast me in his first film. I really wanted to be, a part of his first film because all my other friends are there, and for some reason I wasn't. And then I remember during the film, or I think after the film, he did call me to do that one cameo, which eventually Danish did, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In
Why?
Mantra,
Because you didn't
yeah.
have the dates. You didn't have the dates by then, is it?
No way. He called me when I was already away for some reason, and then I said, "This is not done, yeah, Nicholas. You should have." And then for this one, of course, he gave me uh, like a way too advance a notice, and I said, "Okay, I'm game." He has promised me that in his next film, I'm his lead, but let's see. Who
Hmm.
knows?
I would love that to happen. Yeah.
So, was this idea sitting in your head for a long time that you've got to make a Northeast centric film because you belong, isn't it? I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Always wanted to. Always wanted to. I just didn't know when and whether it was going to be possible. Remember that it's still a very hard sell. In the writing of it, I was, at the back of my mind, there was this constant worry. How do I sell this? It's got an 80% Northeastern cast. I've got to find them. And then how do you make it commercially viable? All these things. Despite making it a comedy more than a serious, film, because in any case, if it were a serious film, there was no way I could have been able to make it, And then Saregama, that way has been wonderful. They picked it up. They said, we'll go with this. We're taking a risk. It's a very small film. Obviously, that's understandable. You can't put in too much money for this sort of a thing as well. But I'm just hoping that it opens, hoping that this then opens the gates for more films about the Northeast with Northeastern themes and with Northeastern actors. So yeah.
I have a question, for Nicholas, if I may ask, with your permission, Rishi. This, may I?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So, this almost seems like your first film, Nicholas. You know what I'm saying? The film that has come out of you, out of your own experiences, out of your heart, your passion, whatever. Of course, it's all there. But when I saw it at Mami, and I thought I would speak to you about it, and I forgot because it was such an accolade happening, and I also got carried away. But if I just want to know, did you have this script before Mantra? Why didn't you attempt this film first if you did?
No, I wrote it much after Mantra.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And
okay.
I think the reason Mantra, this feels more my film, I don't know. I'm just trying to think about this. Is perhaps because in some senses, you had in that it well, I mean, let me put it this way. I'm saying because I had more resources here, I think I was able to do more and sort of stay true to the script. But Mantra is still something that is very close to my heart. I think I'd like to think it's Rajat's finest performance. I think he's fantastic in the film. And I really think everybody should, not just Rajat's fans, but everybody should watch that film just for Rajat's fine performance. And yeah, but I think money helps, with film. That's what I've realized.
Yeah.
What I've realized with film is that money helps tell your story, because when you don't have enough money, then you end up having to tell the story slightly differently. You end up saying, without even realizing, you're sitting there, you're saying, oh, no, we'll do the scene differently, which is another way of saying, we don't have the money to do it this way, so let's tell the story differently. And small things here and there, of course, that happens all the time. There are all kinds of, problems, and you try and circumvent them. But, when they happen all too often because of money, then you realize that it's actually having to retell the story on account of basis the kind of money you have.
Vinay, it must be very interesting. For me, it was when I was watching Axone, about facets of Northeast culture. And I don't just mean that, the getting together of the community and cooking the Axone, but, the fact that, marriages happening long distance, which we'll see more of happening in all,
Yeah.
of that happening in all communities now,
Yeah.
with lockdown and things like that. And, the priest and the ritual and things like that. So this must have also been very interesting for you as an eye opener towards Northeast culture. Talk to me about that.
See, I'd always been fascinated by the region of Seven Sisters, as I remember them, and the last 7 8 years, I would say 10 odd years, I have started to travel a lot to Northeast, uh, because I didn't know anything about Northeast, and I felt terrible about it. So now, I mean, I've been to Sikkim, I've been to Gangtok, I've been to Shillong, I've been to Manipur, I've been to Assam, I've been to Tezpur in Assam, I've been to so many places, I've been to Cherrapunji, and this has been only my endeavor because I sincerely thought that I was missing out, on so many things, not just what are the places in my country. It's exactly like when I first started discovering south of India, and then I realized that how distinct, was Munnar from Salem. how different it was, and why is Salem important, and why is Munnar so significant, and why is Ooty, and and these are four different worlds almost. Not just the culture, the places, the food. Uh, and I'm a vegetarian. My friends make fun of me, but I can distinctly tell you the different cuisine. You go to Karnataka, there's certain things in Karnataka they make that they don't even know about in Tamil Nadu, for example. So a puddu in Karnataka is not even heard of in some parts of Tamil Nadu, and ragi muddai here, and uh, parota there in your Kerala, and the Telugu, the whole cuisine. Uh, Similarly in Manipur, I found for the first time, I was completely blown. Black rice. Okay, it was pitch black rice, and when you make it, it doesn't get brown; it remains black. And I was fascinated, and it's delicious. And I was there, and I was just going crazy on like such delicious food. Assam, I remember last year I just made a 2-day visit to Assam only to eat in Khorika. There's this restaurant, this heritage restaurant in Guwahati called Khorika. I just went there to eat because the food is just awesome. You go to Shillong, the food is different. You go to Sikkim, the food is different. You go to Kalimpong, though Kalimpong is more West Bengal than it is. So that's what I'm saying. So I realized that there's, I'm so ignorant, and I'm talking personally.
All of us are. Yeah.
So yeah, so it's constantly, in order to educate oneself, and cinema is a great leveler. Yeah. Sometimes I feel so fortunate and so lucky to be able to be a part of this profession, because it takes you, you can't even fathom at the places and the things I would experience a year from now. I can just gush about it right now, but a year from now, I don't know which new place I might be going to. If I was in any other profession, I would have to plan it, probably, and then maybe, possible or not possible. But the spontaneity of this, the unpredictability of this profession, which is all about prepping and not be unpredictable when you're making your product. But cinema itself, for me, it's an extension of literature. It is almost like one of those travelogue that you read, so well written. That's also a part of literature. You read a story from so many different regions, so many different world, different languages, different tongue, different culture, and this I'm saying just within our country, within our. So I had been very, very thrilled, and when I saw Akuni for the first time, of course I had read it on the script, and had a great time for 3-4 days in Delhi, because I was working with friends, and you can't ask for anything more when you're working with your friends. You're just hanging out and having fun and creating, whatever is it that you're creating. But when I saw it in the theater with packed house, I the cynical ass person that I am, I really was choked. My heart was so full, and um, it was really, really overwhelming for me to see the film come out so wonderful as it had come out. So I have to say thank you, Nicholas.
Thank you, Vinay.
How are you holding up in lockdown, bro? I mean, are uh, grocery supplies coming into the building? You sanitize and you bring them up, or you able to go out twice a week? Uh, how are you holding up? And I hope friends, family, all are healthy. Let's talk about life in lockdown. And most importantly, have you picked up any important skill? And I don't just mean jhadu pocha. I mean, anything that you've added to your skill in these days of isolation.
ऋषि के गाजर का अचार मैं इतना कमाल का डालने लगा हूं ना
क्या बात
कि होश फाख्ता हो जाएंगे आप.
लवली. क्या बात. क्या बात.
There's a term in Urdu called fakhta, which the English sounding sister of it is not
Sounds
very far
obnoxious.
from the meaning of it. You understand? So मैंने अचार कभी नहीं डाला था पहले, एंड आई थॉट व्हाई नॉट, तो आई कॉल्ड माय मम एंड एंड मैंने गाजर का अचार डाला, और मुझे लगा कि मैंने डाला इसलिए मुझे ही सिर्फ पसंद आ रहा है। तो मेरे जो अड़ोस पड़ोस में दोस्त रहते हैं, शरद कटारिया को थोड़ा सा भेजा, रणवीर जोड़ी को थोड़ा सा भेजा, तो मुझे हर तरफ से उठ, अरे क्या तो अचार डाला। So that's one achar skill I have. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And otherwise, going out getting the groceries, or the essentials are coming home to the building and you
No,
bring
no,
it.
no, 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 no. Getting it delivered, getting it delivered. Also, before you ask anything important, one thing I have to tell you, please tell your mom also. I made idli from scratch, my friend.
Oh my God,
Scratch.
she'd be very proud of you.
Okay. So no buying batter, nothing. I fermented the rice, night before, udad and poha and all of that, and from the scratch, I made idli. So
Beautiful.
please, please tell mom that I was remembering her.
Definitely. Nicholas, were you in London when the film
Yes,
showed in London?
yes.
What is perhaps the nicest thing somebody said to you after watching it in London or even in Mami?
Well, let's go with London. The nicest thing that was, that came up at that point, which I didn't think about actually, was that because here I was caught up with the idea of making a film about Northeasterners living in Delhi, and yeah, it touches upon racism, migration, etc., etc. But I didn't realize how universal this story was. So I
Yeah.
sit there, and then obviously because the audience consisted of a whole lot of white people, but also a lot of Indians who had lived there for decades and so on. And there was this whole conversation that began about how when there was that South Asian migration to the UK in the 60s and 70s, and a whole bunch of South Asians cooking curry and getting into trouble. And you think curry doesn't smell like, it's not, it's fine. There's nothing offensive about that smell. You think, and then of course there was all of that playing out. And somebody jokingly remarked, I remember saying, how wonderful that London has gone from, that time when it was frowned upon to it being the national dish now, So,
Beautiful.
Correct.
but it's the
Correct.
story of, of it's a universal story in that sense, because everybody who goes outside that space of his own and ends up cooking wherever he's going, and then of course that
So you're saying essentially that Akune could be obnoxious smelling to people outside the Northeast, but in the Northeast, it's a regular smell, isn't it?
what is wrong with you? It's delicious smelling. I love the smell.
Ah, lovely.
It's no, and that's very obvious, right? In the same way that like we're talking about curry right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And you think, what is offensive smelling about? What's
It's
melodrous
all in the
about?
mind.
It's all in the mind. It's crazy, and we love that smell.
Lovely. Listen, thank you for a wonderful film. Thank you for being patient through this. Vinay Pathak, over the weekend, Chintu ka birthday is lined up. So I'm going to have
Yes.
two Vinay Pathak experiences on the screen. Akhune happened last night, and this one's going to be over the weekend, and you will hear on WhatsApp from me, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Please let me know,
Thank you.
and please my love to all the ladies at home.
Likewise,
And
from here to you.
regards. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Rishi.
Hi, thank you so much.